Your sister gets the house. You have 48 hours to clear out. My mother's voice was sharp, final, like a blade slicing through the thick Georgia air. I didn't flinch. I didn't fight. I just nodded, turned, and walked back inside. What happened 48 hours later, when my sister walked through that front door with her wedding planner and her film crew, would haunt her forever. But first, let me ask you, have you ever built something with your own hands, only to watch someone else try to take credit for it? Drop a yes in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from today. I want to see just how many of you know this feeling. When those words left my mother's lips, they didn't just hang in the air. They settled into my bones. 48 hours. That was the deadline to erase 5 years of my life. My sister, Sierra, needed the house. Needed it for the perfect wedding aesthetic. Needed it for her social media reveal. I stood there in the hallway, my eyes tracing the intricate moldings I had painstakingly restored. I thought about the weekends I'd lost, scraping away layers of old paint until my shoulders ached. I thought about the salvaged heart pine flooring I'd installed board by board. My father, Thomas, just stared at his shoes, unable to look at me. He knew. He knew this wasn't just a house. It was my blood, sweat, and tears, poured into a crumbling Victorian money pit my grandmother, Beatrice, had left behind. 5 years ago, this place was a condemned death trap. The roof sagged, the foundation wept water, and the city had a demolition date circled on the calendar. My parents were drowning in debt. They couldn't scrape together the $175,000 needed to pull it back from the brink. So, I did. I was 23, fresh out of design school, and I emptied my entire future into this structure. I didn't just write a check, I signed over my youth. I spent my evenings learning electrical work from YouTube videos. I skipped trips to the coast to afford a new copper gutter system. I did it because my father, with tears in his eyes, promised me, "Chloe, this land has been in our family for generations. You're not just fixing a house, you're securing your place in it." I was stupid enough to believe him. I thought I was investing in a legacy. Instead, I was just paying an invisible rent, a tax on being loved. In my family, affection wasn't given, it was earned through utility. My therapist calls it the builder's curse. When you're the one who holds the flashlight, fixes the leak, and pays the bill, you start to believe that your value is tied to your output. You're terrified that if you stop being useful, you'll become invisible. That $175,000 wasn't just for drywall and 2x4s. It was a desperate bid to buy my way into belonging. But Sierra never had to build a thing. She just had to show up. She was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets expected to orbit. She didn't need to fix anything because her presence was the gift. I was the crew. And now the renovation was complete. The house was a masterpiece. Which meant my role was over. My utility had expired. They were firing the contractor. "Fine," I said. My voice was eerily calm, a flatness that should have warned them. "I'll be out in 48 hours. My mother exhaled, a sound of relief that cut deeper than any insult. "Good. Make sure the walk-in closet is empty. Sierra needs it for her dress storage." I walked past them, up the staircase I had rebuilt, and into my room. I didn't scream or cry. I just sat on the floor and ran my hand over the custom-milled baseboards. Then, I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a moving company. I called a deconstruction crew I knew from the salvage yards. "Hey, Mark," I said, my voice steady. "I have a full strip-out. Everything I paid for, everything I installed, it all goes. If my name is on the receipt, it leaves the building." The next 2 days were a blur of silent, surgical precision. My mother was too busy ordering monogrammed napkins to notice the blue tape I placed on the chandelier. She didn't see the salvage truck parked down the alley. We worked like ghosts. We didn't destroy, we reclaimed. The vintage light fixtures came down, their wires carefully capped. The custom walnut vanity in the master bath was unbolted and carried out in sections. The smart appliances were disconnected, their warranties still valid. We took the drawer pulls, the towel bars, the shower heads. We even took the brass mail slot from the front door. In their place, we installed the cheapest, hollowest hardware the hardware store had in stock. By the time the 48 hours were up, the house was a hollow carcass. It was a shell, stripped of its soul. I stood in the empty foyer one last time. The walls were bare, marked with the ghosts of the art that once hung there. The floors were naked without the Persian rugs. It was ugly. It was cold. It was a perfect reflection of how they made me feel. I placed the key on the windowsill, walked out, and drove away without a single look back. I checked into a hotel outside the city, turned my phone off, and ordered a steak dinner. For the first time in half a decade, I wasn't listening for a strange noise in the pipes or worrying about a draft. I slept like the dead. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded. 23 missed calls from my mother. 15 from my father. 42 texts from Sierra. The one from Sierra was just a scream in text form, "What did you do? The house is empty. This is my wedding." Then a voicemail from my father, his voice trembling with rage. "Chloe, this is theft. You've stripped the value out of this house. I'm calling the police. You will go to jail for this." I listened to his message twice. There was no concern for where I was. No worry about my safety. Just fury that their possession was broken. They had become so accustomed to my sacrifice that my departure felt like an act of war. They thought the house came with a Chloe warranty. That warranty was void. The next morning, a process server handed me a thick legal envelope in the hotel lobby. My father had followed through. He was suing me for destruction of property, theft of fixtures, and emotional distress. The damages sought were over $200,000. A cold spike of fear hit me. Had I gone too far? Legally, fixtures attached to a property often belong to the house. Maybe my anger had just ruined my life. I called my friend Anita. Anita wasn't just a lawyer, she was a legal predator who specialized in untangling family disasters. She had been my grandmother's attorney. "Get in here, now," she said. We sat in her office, the lawsuit lying between us like a ticking bomb. Anita read through it, her face a mask. "This is a tantrum, Chloe. But we have to answer it." We spent hours digging through my files. Receipts for the marble, invoices for the lumber, permits for the electrical work. I had proof I paid for everything. But Anita wasn't interested in the receipts. She was looking at the original transfer documents from 5 years ago, when my grandmother's estate was settled. She pulled out a faded document. "Chloe," she said slowly. "Do you remember your father's lawsuit back then? The one with the building supplier?" I did. He was being sued for non-payment, and he was terrified of losing everything. That was why they claimed they couldn't pay for the renovations. Their assets were frozen. Anita slid a paper across the table. It was a quitclaim deed. To shield the house from creditors, she said. They signed it over. To you. I stared at the paper, my own name staring back. The memory surfaced. They had sat me down, telling me it was a temporary measure, a tax strategy to protect the family legacy. They said they'd reverse it as soon as the lawsuit was settled. Anita tapped the deed. They never reversed it, Chloe. They were too cheap to pay the transfer taxes to put it back in their names. They just forgot. Or assumed you'd never check. She smiled, a sharp, dangerous smile. Legally, you aren't the tenant. You're the owner. You have been for 5 years. Your parents aren't the landlords. They're squatters. The room spun. The reality crashed into me. I hadn't been renovating their house. I had been renovating my house. They had been living in my house rent-free, treating me like a servant. They had evicted me from my own property. The fear vanished, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. They tried to use the law to bury me, but the law had been on my side the whole time. Anita picked up her phone. Letter, or in person? I thought about Sierra's wedding rehearsal, scheduled for that morning. I had seen the Facebook posts. They had hired emergency crews to bring in rental furniture, desperately trying to salvage their perfect day. They were determined to pretend I never existed. In person, I said. The next morning, the Savannah sun was brutal. I pulled up to my house. The driveway was packed. Caterers, florists, a rental truck. My parents were on the porch, directing traffic, looking stressed but victorious. They thought they had fixed the problem. Behind me, a sheriff's cruiser pulled in, lights flashing silently. 2 deputies stepped out. My father saw me first. His face went purple. You have some nerve, he boomed, marching down the steps. Get off my property before I have you arrested. I kept walking, my heels clicking on the pavement. Sierra ran out onto the porch in her silk robe, a glass of champagne in her hand. Get her out of here, Dad. She's ruining my day. I stopped, face to face with my father. You can't do this, Chloe, he spat, jabbing a finger at me. I own this place. I reached into my bag and pulled out the certified quitclaim deed. No, Dad, I said, my voice low and steady. You don't. You hid this house from your creditors and you were too cheap to take it back. I handed him the document. I watched his eyes scan the page. I saw the exact moment the air left his lungs. He saw his own signature. The date. The notary stamp. The undeniable proof of his own negligence. This house is mine, I said. It has been for 5 years. You are trespassing. I want you out. Now. The deputy stepped forward. Sir, is that your signature? He asked, pointing to the paper. My father sputtered. This was a tax thing. An agreement. Is that your signature? The deputy repeated. Yes, my father whispered. Then you need to vacate the premises, the deputy said. The owner has requested your removal. My mother started screaming. It was a primal shriek of losing control. We're her parents. You can't do this. I looked at the woman who had given me 48 hours to leave. You have 48 minutes, I said. Get your things, get your guests, and get out. The wedding was moved to a motel conference room off the interstate. I heard the photos looked terrible. I didn't keep the house. The memories were too poisoned. I sold it, as is, for a significant profit. The structural work I'd done added immense value. I used that capital to start my own architecture firm. I named it Beatrice Design, after the only person in that family who ever saw me. My parents tried to sue again, claiming fraud. It went nowhere. The paper trail was too clean. They ended up in a small apartment, their reputation in tatters. Sierra stopped speaking to me, which was the greatest gift she could have ever given. I sit in my new office now, looking out at the city. I'm no longer the fixer. I'm the founder. I cut the cord, and for the first time, I'm not afraid of falling. I built a new foundation, one they can never touch. If you've ever had to burn a bridge to save yourself, smash that like button for Winds of Thought, and tell me in the comments, what was the moment you finally realized your worth wasn't tied to what you could do for others?